I was going to be Maxine Shaw, Joan Carroll Clayton, Brittany Broaddus-Smith. That was how it was going to go.
Empathy.
Empathy leads to intimacy,
that
which leads to ecstasy.
Intimacy, you got the intimacy firm right here, right? Is intimacy.
Yeah. A lot of people, unfortunately, get their sexual education from pornography.
Hello.
Hey, Brittany.
How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm excited too. I love your little pink. I love that.
You, baby.
Nice. So what you been working on? How you first of all, how you feeling?
I'm yet holding on, child.
How you feeling?
I'm yet holding on.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Okay, a lot going on in the
It's a lot
world.
going on.
Mhm.
And this dissertation, I promise you, is going to be the death of me.
Oh, we want to talk about dissertations because what I call dissertation is like academic hazing.
It's exactly what it is.
Right?
That is exactly what it
and
is.
I'm like, why?
That's exactly
Why
what it
is it necessary? But you know what? The truth is, if everybody could do it, everybody would.
That is
right?
correct.
So, and the things that are most valuable
You got to work
sometimes
for 'em.
are the most difficult.
Yes.
Right? But it don't have to be that difficult.
But it's hard. It's hard.
But you're going to do it. You're going to get it done, right?
Ooh, pray my strength.
So the thing that you are working on now,
Yes.
like what are your major projects that outside of the dissertation?
And so it's actually, they're connected,
they're
right?
connected.
So
Okay.
for my dissertation, I'm studying the sexual scripts of Black Pentecostal millennials. So with my podcast, there are discussions with the work that I do with like clients and stuff like that. Even the stuff I do on social media is taking what I'm finding in my research to make it, palatable for the everyday people. But also my overall arching goal is to create a sexual discipleship model that leaders and churches can adopt. And so by trying to take the findings that I get from my participants and present it on social media and things like that, so leaders can see, here, I know this is what y'all preaching, but here's what's actually happening.
I've always wondered I'm a church girl. I grew up in the church. I was literally baptized at 13 years of age at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church.
Saved, sanctified, and Holy
There
Ghost
you
filled.
go. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. But I also wondered, why is nobody talking?
Yeah.
And why are people having these, what I thought were issues, but nobody was addressing them?
Yeah.
And then I learned as an adult that, and we're clinicians, and every faith-based organization, you got clinicians.
Yep.
And every mental health facility, you got believers,
Yep.
but nobody's talking to each other. So that's where we come in.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the Ask Dr. Argie podcast, where courageous conversations connect.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So listen, when we talk about sex, here's the thing. When I think about sex,
Okay.
I believe that people like having sex.
They do.
I do not believe people want to talk about sex.
They don't.
And I think that creates a problem, not just in the church, but in the community as a whole.
Yeah.
Because not only are we spiritual beings having a human experience,
Yes.
we're also sexual beings, right? We got here that way.
Yeah.
And I also believe that God intended us to not only have procreation, we got to reproduce, but he was very crafty because he made it recreational as well. Procreation and recreation. So it's supposed to feel good for adults that have emotional maturity and intelligence that can handle it, right? But that requires having a courageous conversation, and nobody seems to want to do that.
Yeah.
So then people find themselves in these relationships where you have now connected to another human being at the highest form of connection, and you're not able to even communicate what your sexual needs are, your wants, your desires. And by the way, that changes over time.
Yeah.
So who you were as a sexual being at 21 or whatever, your early 20s, fast forward a couple of decades, that is not the same sexual being in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So Brittany, tell me why you got into this field in the first place. What was it that drew you to this field of wanting to share education around sexuality and sex specifically, and in particular in the faith-based communities?
Yeah, I honestly, it may sound cheesy, but it was God because
sound cheesy.
I wanted to be a lawyer all the way up until my undergrad, my first day at undergrad. My major was political science. I was going to go to law school. I was going to be Maxine Shaw, Joan Carroll Clayton, Brittany Broaddus-Smith. That was how it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
But that man bored me to tears. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I switched to psychology, and I'm still planning to go to law school. You know, get my my understanding of the human brain, my cross-examinations were going to be better. You know, I object the whole thing. But slowly but surely, just a series of events went from a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in social work, and then I got my license. And around my last year at Temple is when I learned of Widener University's human sexuality program. And my social work professor at the time was like, if you do couples work, you're going to be wore out, but you'll always have a job. And I was like, okay, well, I would always like a job. So let me consider couples work and then, you know, the sex works. And we did a case study and we're kind of discussing how a lot of the interpersonal problems, it's a catch-22. Either there are interpersonal problems that show up in the bedroom or there are bedroom problems that cause interpersonal problems. So when I learned the Widener's program, I was like, okay, I'm going to go there. And then I got married to a deacon who was 10 years older than me. And I was looking around and I was trying to figure out what's happening here. And I was like, it can't just be because I'm the youngest wife in here. Something is off. Y'all are approaching sex in a way that I don't understand. And we reading the same Bible. I'm missing something. And so with that program, it was a weekend program. And my pastor at the time was like, if you're going to be leaving the house, you need to bring something back into the house. And so he had me teach a Sunday school, a joint single and married Sunday school called Sex and Salvation. And I was like, Lord, how am I going to teach this class in a way that doesn't, you know, wake love before it's time and get the single people all hot and bothered, but also doesn't bore.
You said wake love before it's time. That's so funny.
And doesn't bore the married people to tears, right? And so we did just God's heart for sex, intimacy, and relationships. You know, base level like love languages, like, you know, stuff like that. And one of the elders at the time, he came up to me. He said, "Baby girl," I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This was good. I knew it was going to be good. But next time, can we do this in the fellowship hall? I don't know how I feel about all this talk in the sanctuary." And if ever I heard the audible voice of God, it was then. And he said, "This is it. And this is why." Because my concentration was clinical sex therapy. So I was going to do sex therapy. But the teaching and like talking about it in public and, you know, being that shining light in the dark area, if you will, kind of ripping the veil from that particular discussion is what the Lord said he wants me to do. So I like to say that this is my Matthew 28. This is my go ye therefore. And this is how I, you know, spread the good news of Jesus Christ through the medium of sex education. So I had my plans. God said, "That was cute. This is what you're going to do." And so that's how we got here.
I mean, there's so much synergy here when I think about it, because even the work that I do every day, the therapy with couples, I find people come in and they want to talk about, they say, "Oh, we're having a communication problem." If you whittle it down, really what they're having is a connection problem. And a lot of the connection is coming from their inability to communicate accurately. It's coming from them not having enough sex. I had a couple and they, you know, their sex life is basically in the trash, and they had not had sex maybe 3 times in a year, which you and I were talking about. That was considered a sexless marriage, if you will, right? But they are not talking about it. And so we're doing in April 25th, we're doing a relationship boot camp. It's for anyone who wants to participate. You don't have to be married. You can be single or married. But what we're going to be teaching is how do you have the courageous conversations, those hard conversations that you think are going to disconnect you, but they're going to connect you. And we're weaving in the accountability, because what I find is people don't really want to be accountable. They want to project. They want to blame. They want to shame. They want to deflect. They don't want to do everything but hold themselves accountable for the ways in which they either have or have not shown up. And so this is part of that conversation. And even in the second chapter in the book is how to win in your relationship when it comes to money, sex, and kids. Because when we talk about divorce, we have the highest divorce rate oftentimes as it relates to people not being intimate. And this is really about intimacy. Intimacy, you got the intimacy firm right here, right? It's intimacy. And so I have a question like, why do you think people are unable or unwilling to be vulnerable, which is really the pathway to intimacy?
I think that we have moved to a place of extreme transaction in
Mhm.
relationships. Everything is a quid pro quo. What have you done for me lately? We cloak it in different terminology, whether it's high value man, soft life,
Mm.
this, like if he wanted
All
to,
the
yeah, if
buzzwords.
he wanted to, he would.
Hmm.
All of that says, what can I get out of this? And I'm going to
Mm.
draw my line in the sand, even the data mall concept, and then whoever the best one will rise to the top. It's like this dog eat dog world. I think a lot of it is women trying to collectively like regain some power and some social capital in the dating market or in the marriage market and things like that, because men have always in their privilege has always had the privilege of choice. If
Hmm.
a man
Hmm.
wants a partner, if a man wants to date, if a man wants to have sex, he gets to choose in ways that sometimes women don't. And as a way to gain some of that power back, it's like, I can do this too, right? Which
Hmm.
we see even in scripture in the curse in Genesis 3. It says, your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. So it already said that we're always going to be at odds with one another. So I think that that's what we are seeing, is that I can't be vulnerable. I can't show you my weakness. I can't show you those entry points because I need to maintain control, as opposed to recognizing that love is a risk and I'm going to be vulnerable with wisdom, because there's a wisdom that should come with and a responsibility that comes with vulnerability, right? I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be responsible, move in wisdom. And then however the cards play out, they play out. And if it works, beautiful. If it doesn't, I'm not fractured to the point of losing my entire self, because then I connected beyond what was healthy and to a point of enmeshment. Because that's the other thing. We swing on that pendulum. It's transactional. What can I get from you? And then I don't know where you start and I end, which is not what the one flesh connection actually is. So I think that we are not relational. We don't agape each other well. Like we don't know what that humanity is, right? I like to say that empathy leads to intimacy, which leads to ecstasy, right? And I think that we
Wait a minute,
skip
wait a minute. Intimacy
empathy.
leads to empathy,
Empathy
leads
leads
to
to
intimacy
intimacy,
that
which
leads
leads
to
to ecstasy.
ecstasy.
And I think we skip all of that and we just want the ecstasy piece of it.
E-I-E.
Yes.
Okay. I love, love, love that. One of the things I like to talk about when people are in conflict, because people don't want to be in conflict.
Yeah.
And I think that every confrontation does not have to be confrontational.
Correct.
Right? And so, but oftentimes, if you have learned in your family of origin how to fight,
Yep.
and quite frankly, fight unfair,
Yep.
emasculation, fighting below the belt,
Yep.
use weaponizing information, all
Yep.
those things that quite frankly cause people to want to withdraw,
Yep.
then you're not going to have that intimacy. You're not going to have the empathy that leads to intimacy, that leads to ecstasy.
Yep.
And then you're going to have all the laundry list of complaints about what your partner is not doing,
Absolutely.
rather than looking at your role in it.
Yep.
The other thing that I think, Brittany, is that when people are fighting unfair, then they're in a battleship. They're on a battleship. And I have to ask people, do you want to be on a battleship or do you want to be in a relationship?
Yeah.
Because rules without relationship equal rebellion.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be this resistance, and not healthy resistance, but unhealthy resistance. And many of us have modeled this because, you can't be what you don't see. And so what we've seen sometimes is these relationships that really are fully transactional and they're in a battle. So when you think about your parents, right, what did you see? Because I know for me, I saw intimacy when I was really young, but then eventually when my parents got into really parenting, and my father was being the provider, my mother was being the nurturer, and they were more distant, then I didn't see that connection. I didn't see the warmth, the cuddling, the touching, the kissing, the fondling, the playfulness. I didn't see a lot of that until like later on. And so it led me as a Black woman down a path of like, okay, all I see is you got to be strong, right? And what does that really look like in an intimate relationship where we're trying to harness the softer side of
Yep.
us and the more nurturing side of us, quite frankly, and that feminine energy.
Yep.
What did you see?
So my father wasn't around, and with my mom, I saw that all of those things, the nurturing, the love, the affection, even just the presence of a man, you had to work for, you had to purchase. And so my mother was the breadwinner in most of the relationships that she were in. I like to say that she loved a fixer-upper. And as
build a man.
she was
like
a
build a bear,
right,
build a man.
And it was from a point of self-esteem. I look from, hindsight's 2020. I look back, and even from my clinical eye, I can see like her deep self-esteem issues. She was like extremely plus size and overweight, and it was like, so a man of full autonomy, agency, that looked like something, had a good job, had a could rub two verbs together, knew how to conjugate and all of those type of things. That man wasn't going to love me. So I had to get some that, needed a little help, needed somewhere to live. And then I can create a life where you have to love me because I've done all of these things for you. So that really stokes the people pleaser in me. And also being raised as more, I see as a co-parent with her than an actual like sibling or daughter. Everything was my responsibility, and thus everything was my fault. So then that stoked the perfectionism. So then in relationships, when you are in a traditional relationship where the man is the head and you want the priest of your home, that was a little rough in the beginning of, my marriage, not only being younger and, him setting the rules, and I got a lot of lip, and I like to talk back, and all of those things, because I was used to running around, making sure that balls, didn't drop. And so it was something that affection I had to earn. I wasn't in my own skin worthy of it, as is. So then when I got divorced, and I'm like, okay, doing all the healing and doing the things. And now I'm like, okay, let's try this dating thing again. It's like, oh, hold on, Holiday. This is not the same environment that I was in, in 2010 when I got married. This is very different, and this is very transactional. And when you've been married, and relational, right? Especially in, trying to do it in like a Christian marriage, this transactional relationship, it doesn't fare well. And you run the risk of, getting hurt because people are out here, they're not, so when you say, oh, I'm abstinent, huh? What? At this big old age, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. So, when I think about my journey, and even in the church where people were having sex.
Yeah.
You're having children, you're having sex, but nobody's talking about sex. What became clear to me is that there was a void, and I think that you tapped into that void as well. I was the servant leader for a sexual abuse survivors ministry for 10 years at Enon, and it came out of an altar call where Pastor Waller asked those who have been impacted by sexual abuse to come forward. And almost half the church came forward. And we're a mega church. And he then said, I cannot receive this, this mandate from God and not do something about it.
Right.
What always gives me chills is that God gave him 5 people to have a meeting with to birth this ministry.
Yeah.
What Pastor Waller did not know is that all 5 people had been sexually abused, and including myself. And all 5 people had done their therapy, so that they weren't bleeding all over each other. And so that then birthed a ministry that became a through line with how do these men and women lean into a healthy sexual experience in partnership if they've got all this trauma. And so I had to not only facilitate as a servant leader, but do my own work as well. And one thing that I learned was that our history is meant to inform us, but our history does not have to define us. And I had to stop using the language, my abuser, because
Right.
I didn't want to own
Oh,
that.
correct.
Right? This is
Correct.
a person who actually was a perpetrator.
Right.
And then I coined a term called the secondary perpetrator.
Mhm.
The primary perpetrator is somebody that did something to you and you had nothing to do with it.
Right.
You didn't own it. You didn't cause it.
Right.
You didn't create it.
Right.
And it's horrible that it happened.
Right.
The secondary perpetrator, if you don't do your work, is you.
Yep.
Where you engage in high-risk behaviors, or you end up in unhealthy relationships that are toxic, or you don't believe that you're worthy or valuable because everything has been transactional. And in that moment, that becomes an aha moment where you then make a decision that you are a child of God, that you are worthy, you are valuable, you are beautifully and wonderfully made, and you are of the opportunity for abundance, even in sexuality, and the sexual experience is available to you, right? And so can you speak to the first folks that you coach around trauma and how you help them to grow through the trauma, not just go through or get over it?
What I found, particularly this is how strategic I find the Lord to be, is that in my own sexual trauma history, it was this like delayed traumatic experience because I didn't know that what happened to me would be considered sexual assault until I learned the definition of consent. I learned the definition of rape, and I was like, hold on, that actually wasn't consensual. And so then it was like a retroactive, like, wow, this is the thing, right? And so what I find that folks who come to me are sharing their experiences, and I have to, with grace, let them know, like, okay, that wasn't okay. That was assault. Like, you woke up with him on top of you just because you consented last night. What's happening this morning? I don't care if y'all spent the night together, and working through that with them. Is like having to, how do I come to terms with something that happened to me, right? And then after that, then being able to separate what happened to you from sex. Because sex and assault are not the similar activity, similar behavior, but because consent wasn't there, then it's not sex. There's no such thing as non-consensual sex.
Right.
That's assault. That's rape. That's sex abuse or whatever, molestation, whatever it is. And so being able to understand, as you said, understand that you're looking at your body no longer as the scene of the crime, right? And that you are able to embrace the beauty and pleasure, the partnership, the intimacy, the ecstasy that is allotted for you, that you are still fearfully and wonderfully made. Your body is still a temple and all of those things, and you still have opportunity to embrace sex as a co-owner in the sexual culture, to create what I like to call the culture of sexual excellence, where this is as much for you as it is for them, and that pleasure and intimacy is equitable in those experiences, which is an altogether different thing from what happened to you, because a lot of people don't want they're triggered during the sexual experience, or there's certain, positions or moves or things that they don't want to do because it reminds them of that thing. But holding them again with that separation, like, don't own it, not your abuser. This is the thing that happened to you. It doesn't define you, but this is also not what you're experiencing in the beauty of your covenant.
Yeah. So I want to take a hard left a little bit, right, left, whatever it is, and talk about the vagina.
Okay.
The vagina.
One of my favorite topics.
And you've got something called, you call it my vulva and me.
Yes.
And the reason why I really want our viewers, we're going to be doing some our Patreon, and in the Patreon, we'll have exclusive interviews, we'll have behind the scenes, and we're going to talk about really intimate things that people don't always want to talk about, and the vagina is one of those things. Now, my experience is men don't have a problem talking about their penises.
No, they do not.
Right? And you look at the little boys, and all they want to do is hold their little wee-wees, and they're fascinated with it, and I ain't mad at them.
Right.
It's a fascinating body part. It's an amazing body part.
Right.
But I'm also fascinated with all body parts because the body is amazing.
It is beautiful.
And the sad part about that is that for women, we have not been taught that the vagina is amazing, and we have reproductive organs that God has given us that literally hold a human inside a womb and then birth that human through the canal. Like, how freaking amazing is that?
That's amazing.
And yet we will walk around feeling like this body part that we have is not worthy, is not beautiful, does not do amazing things, and more importantly, does not have the parts of it that make us feel amazing. Like a beautiful orgasm, you know, from the clitoris. All the good, I see it. I see it.
That's why I walk around with
you got the clit
clitoris
right on your breast.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, it's not just a gender thing. It is a societal thing. One of my colleagues, Goody Howard, she says pleasure is penis shaped in our world, and which a lot of people unfortunately get their sexual education from pornography. And the penis is the central, not even the man, the penis itself is the central star and character of
no supporting cast.
No supporting cast. Of the pornography. So penises, and you know, when patriarchy and capitalism come together, it highlights, as you said, you know, the penis and the discussions about the penis, discussions about male health, which
even
is why
penis envy. Do you remember that? Where clinicians, like women, we have to have penis envy. Why can we not like penises but really love our vaginas as well?
Exactly. But which is why things like there may be somebody watching who is not able to recognize that this is the clitoris, and the clitoris is fairly like there's a movement now about trying to get people clitorally literate, or a clitoracy movement, if you will. And that's why the pleasure gap exists, because people are not aware of the female sexual response cycle and just how the woman's bodies work and how necessary the clitoris is to sexual pleasure. And for believers, it's astonishing because pleasure existed before sin did. When God saw all that he had made and he put Adam to sleep, took his rib, brought Eve together, the clitoris isn't a technological marvel. It existed in perfection. For all intents and purposes, there was no evolution that said, okay, now these group of humans have a clitoris. So, you know, Eve was walking around fully perfect when God saw all that he had made, and not just said it was good, but said that it was very good. It was pleasure, and he was pleased, and Adam looked at Eve and said, "My God." He said,
like, woo!
"Finally, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." So the pleasure existed there before.
Thank you, Jesus.
Exactly. Before the serpent and his raggedy tail came in and began to have us question two things: what did God say and who God is? And so a lot of what we carry in our bodies, as far as the shame and, you know, there's 14 aisles of vaginal products, hygiene products, and things like that, and dew wipes just became a thing because men have different butts somehow, that they need a special wipe for their behind that's different from the ones that already exist. And why period poverty exists, because if men, I guarantee you, if men menstruated, there would be no such thing as period poverty. If men had babies, there would be no such thing as this, you know, Roe v. Wade wouldn't have even been a thing. But because women are still considered, for all intents and purposes, second class, and we don't have that same privilege and authority and social capital unless it's through what we are doing with our bodies. We don't have that same control and agency of our bodies, which is why even with the language like vagina versus vulva, people recognize vagina, but vulva is not a commonly understood thing. The vagina, the only part that's the vagina is the internal canal, right? Everything else, the clitoris, the labia, the perineum, all of those things, the vaginal opening, the urethral opening, all of those things are the vulva, the external part that we can see, but that's not a common conversation. And then that impacts pleasure, because the more you know anatomy, the better lover you are. And so when we still have men who turn their nose up about having to go to the, you know, the menstrual aisle and buy pads for their partner, I wonder what your sex life is like, because why does that creep you out? Like, you don't like that part of it, but you sure like to have your face in it. Excuse my language. You know what I'm saying? It does make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the difficult part about it, is that societally our bodies were deemed unimportant, but yet so much money is made off of it.
Yeah. So when I continue to think about these little girls and these little boys that are growing up, my mission is to have these courageous conversations, not with just adults, but with young people.
Yeah.
They need to know good touch, bad touch.
Yeah.
They need to know their bodies. They need to know anatomy. They need to know the beautiful cycle of what emotional and sexual maturity looks like down the line. And they need to know how to converse about it, right? And when we think about
including consent,
especially consent, right?
Correct.
And then, when we think about just even men, and why they are wired or their bodies are the way that they are, and the appetite is different oftentimes. Some of that has to do with testosterone and estrogen. Sometimes it has to do with how we feel on the inside. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that they were exposed way too early and have this hyper attention to sexuality in a very different way. And so for men and women specifically, there's this idea of like, okay, if the pleasure is available to the man, it should also be available to the woman. But we heat up differently.
Yeah, we do.
Right? Like the guy, like, he's ready on and popping.
Right.
And for us, we kind of need a little romance, a little kind words. We need you to attend to us in a different way, the protector and the provider. Prior to that, because that's the foreplay, if you will.
And even physically, just like I said, I mentioned earlier, the sexual response cycle, women, we're about 15 to some people even 30 minutes behind men in our sexual response. So that, the foreplay and things like that is not just, because we're emotional creatures. Like physically, our body needs that so that the vaginal canal can elongate to its fullest capacity, so that we're getting the moisturize and the lubrication that is needed. And so because, erections happen so quickly and they are the star of the show, then a lot of women, particularly from conservative religions, experience a lot of sexual pain because, again, they're taught to be available to them. So he's erect, we must be ready to go. And we don't have that language to say, I need you to slow up a little bit. I need a little bit more time. As you said, to heat up. Everything is just so bam, 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 which is, again, that transaction that says, I'm erect, I need to orgasm. And when orgasm is the central focus, that really believe it or not, orgasm being the central focus really dampens the sex life. Pleasure should be the central focus, which allows it to extend through seasons, because there may be some seasons where penetrative experiences may not be possible or may not be wanted or interested, you know what I'm saying? And so if pleasure, what do we do to make us feel good? How are we connecting, as you said, and connecting versus attaching, right? Because sex feels good, oxytocin's gonna come, you're gonna wanna, feel ooey gooey, but if there's no vulnerability, if that intimacy is not there, then we can have ecstasy. Like we said, we skip those pieces, but it's hollow, right?
Yeah. So I got a thought here. I'm gonna throw out some stuff.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw out, like, we're gonna do a range of 0 to 10.
Ooh, okay.
And you tell me where you find that range with regards to introducing these elements into a sexual relationship.
Okay. 10 being what?
10 being the highest, most important, 0 being not that important.
Okay.
As a sex therapist.
Okay.
Dildos.
Ooh, not that important. It's personal preference.
Personal preference.
Yeah.
Role playing.
5.
5.
It's helpful because role playing, in a larger sense of the word, because it helps to give an opportunity to convey messages that you may not have the everyday language
Explore.
Yeah.
This is a big one, because I think the way we go into a relationship sometimes needs to be how we continue. And oftentimes people fall off.
Yeah.
So lingerie and sexy clothing.
I think if we broaden, I would say 9, 10, because it broadens, if we can broaden that to just sexual expression and commitment to creating an environment that is conducive for sexiness.
Okay. Lubricants.
10, 15,
10,
20,
15,
30,
20.
40. Everybody. I don't care how ooey
ding,
goo.
ding,
I
ding,
don't
ding,
care
ding,
how
ding, ding.
ooey gooey it is. Lube is for everybody.
Lube
Lube is
is
rated
for
E for
everybody.
everybody.
You
Yes.
get some lube and you get some lube and you get some lube,
Yes,
right?
and some more lube
and
on
some
top
more
of that.
lube, right?
Yes,
To have the
yes,
great sexual experiences.
Yes.
Awesome,
Any
awesome.
age and stage, lube is necessary.
And what about protection? Like condoms, prophylactics? Like why do you think men don't like them?
Men don't like protect because I'm not a man. I don't have a penis, but
you work with men.
But it's the idea that it doesn't feel the same, and it's uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable, then you have the wrong
They make
size.
so many
They have
different
so many
kinds,
options.
right?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I just think it's just like the language that we have societally around. It just makes contraceptive not a ideal thing, regardless of how protective it can actually be.
Now, I said this on the Tamron Hall show. I said that couples need to have a Naked Wednesday or a Naked Tuesday.
I said that all the time.
Just have your dinner in the buff, everything out so that your body becomes the star of the show. If you're going to watch a movie and cuddle, just try to get more comfortable with your body.
Yeah.
But the naked evening or the naked date, just do that. What do you think about that?
I love that, which is why I say even with the lingerie piece, it goes into just the freedom of expression, because lingerie may be lace and maybe, the garters and all that for you in your house. Lingerie for you may be the special gold muumuu, right? Grandma had 15 kids up under that muumuu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that the freedom to just be is what you're expressing. So the naked, I still call them Freaky Friday, especially for couples who have busy families. And when I'm having conversations about scheduling sex, because we've idolized spontaneity. Like you got 4 kids and 6 businesses. You're not going to walk in the house and the clothes fall off and you're going to have sex on the living room floor. It's just not going. It's just not going to happen. You got the puppy in the way. Like, it's just not going to happen. But if you schedule a day where you give yourself something to look forward to. If Freaky Friday is the day, grandma come get them kids, the dog is in the kennel, when we walk, the clothes hit the floor, when we walk in the door, no matter what we do, it's something on our calendar in the light of everything else that we have going on that we get to look forward to, and it prioritizes and tells your partner, this is important to me. Again, prioritizing pleasure over the orgasm. Is the orgasm wonderful? Yes. It's like pound cake. Sex is pound cake. You throw a little strawberry and whipped cream on it, that's the orgasm. That's good.
That's icing on the cake.
That's good. But a pound cake, a good crusty pound cake is good even without that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful experience to whatever it looks like in your home. If you have moments, experiences, staples where you are just free to be.
I love it. Free to be.
Yes.
I love that. So we're going to be doing our Patreon. We're going to make sure that people get the backstage, the exclusive conversations, the extra tips, all the sort of get ready with Dr. Argie. I definitely know that you're going to be back. And we're going to be doing that masterclass. It's really going to be a relationship boot camp where we learn how to talk about all things, including sex, and why we don't do it as much as we need to. And we need to have better sexual relationships, better experiences. Absolutely. Last question that I usually ask everyone. What would you tell your younger self? Now that you found out that there is something that you are most fearful of, right? What is that thing that you feel like you may have conquered that you would then go back and tell your younger self?
Oh, baby girl, you are already good enough. You do not have any love that you have to earn, not work for, because love is work, but any love that you have to earn, that you have to compromise for, that if you stop doing, they stop loving, is not love in and of itself. You are good enough as you are.
Amen. Thank you so much for being on the Ask Dr. Argie show. Well, you're going to come back, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Anytime.
All right. Excellent.